we all decide what's wrong or right. It don't come from a book, it comes from birthright. Discernment, discretion, spare hard lessons and unblocked blessings. No devilish fingerprinting impressions. Is it wrong for people to steal, cheat, or deceive? Cause they look different or don't agree with what you believe.
When we were all in the caves, half of everyone born was dead before the age of 30.
Jesus.
Fast forward to 1840.
Sure.
That number went up to 35. Half of everyone born was dead by the time they were 35. So, in the tens of thousands of years between living in caves and the middle of the 19th century,
we only got 5 more
we
years.
got 5 years
Jesus.
on that. Okay?
Wow. So wait a minute. First of all, please tell me when we were all in caves. Is that what you said?
When we were all in the caves, half of everyone born was dead before the age of 30.
Jesus.
We were all in caves? We all lived in caves. I don't know what bloodline you're talking about, but we weren't all in caves. That's number one.
Imagine a world where houses never touch the ground, but rise high in the giant trees of the rainforest, where entire families live more than 100 feet above the earth, isolated from the rest of the world, in a way of life that seems frozen in time. This is the world of the Korowai, the tribe that built its survival on branches, roots, and traditions that defy the logic of the modern world. Until just a few decades ago, almost no one outside New Guinea even knew the Korowai existed. Isolated deep within Papua's dense rainforest, they lived far from roads, cities, or any contact with modern life. To the outside world, it was as if they simply didn't exist. It wasn't until the 1970s that explorers and missionaries began documenting their way of life, introducing to the world a unique society, one that builds homes high in the treetops, lives off hunting, gathering, and subsistence farming, and preserves ancestral traditions that have endured through time. What is most striking is not only their isolation, but their ingenuity. While most societies sought shelter on the ground, the Korowai chose the heights. Wooden and thatched houses, raised on platforms supported by massive tree trunks, became natural fortresses against floods, wild animals, and even rival tribes.
When we were all in the caves,
the Korowai territory is one of the most unforgiving regions on the planet. Papua's rainforest is dense, humid, and crisscrossed by rivers winding between trees that can soar over 160 feet tall. The heat and humidity create a harsh environment for outsiders, but for the Korowai, this is the perfect home. The forest is not just a dwelling, it's also a pantry. It provides fruits, fibers for traps, massive trunks for treetop houses, and even wood for their natural bridges. The rivers supply fresh water and fish, but they also pose real dangers, from flooding to lurking crocodiles. Cut off by nature itself, the Korowai have turned this hostile land into a safe and thriving space for their way of life.
Number two, of course you're going to say that with modern science, things were much better. You're a scientist. That makes sense. It goes to the credibility of your profession. However, this is not the case. This is not true. Before modern science, people lived way longer than what you said. That is a fact. It's not. Where did you get this information? Were you there? What are you talking about? What are these dudes be talking about?
Okay, since then, with advances in medicine and, by the way, everyone back then was eating organic. Just saying. And the water was clear, the air ran pure, the game was free range. Didn't make a damn bit of difference. Science matters here, okay?
Can't pull a OKEY DOKE on me, bro. Sorry. I live in a time period where I know people who had grandmothers or you know, they never went to hospitals and doctors or none of that stuff, and they lived into their hundreds, 90s. So, you know, people dying at 35. I don't know where you're getting these numbers. They don't make any sense. And anybody who's a thinker is going to see way past that in this day and age. So that's the pros and the cons to the internet. Okay, so you have the ability to get all of this information, and the people who are gatekeeping information, the scholars, the people who we look to with the doctorates and all of that, none of that matters anymore, because the stuff that you know, we could know. We could go right now on YouTube and go take a whole course in biology for free from college and learn the same things that you dudes learn. Maybe not doctorate level, but we know the same things you know. So when I hear these things that are just nonsensical or they, you know, there's a reason why they strike a chord inside. Pause. Okay? There's something wrong with what you're saying, and that's what it's saying to me inside. I don't need no book. I don't need nothing to tell me that. But having the knowledge or having the books or having some understanding of what you're talking about, I can be like, man, get out of here with that. So it's very offensive to say these things and they not be true. If you're very astute in your studies, which I am very analytical, I do a lot of research. If you like to do that type of stuff, there's books, you can get the same textbooks at doctorate levels. There's so many ways that I can learn the same information and draw conclusions with study and practice, the same things that you guys do. Openly say, oh, I'm practicing medicine, I'm practicing. You don't know everything and you don't know all, you're practicing.
All right? You can run around and eat all the organic you want.
Okay.
You'd be dead by the 30 unless some doctor came in and said, we can increase your life expectancy using science.
You're directing this at me as if I'm RFK Jr. I'm not.
See, the problem with me is when you are being disingenuous, when you come off as being disingenuous, it infuriates me because the concept is that modern medicine is so great. Meanwhile, everything that modern medicine knows, it knows because of indigenous people or things that came way before them that they stole or gave themselves credit for. And this is easily proven.
Let's talk about some of the vast resources on the African continent and how they were exploited and utilized by the Africans.
Well, they have found, for example, in medicine, extraordinary things occurring in African medicine. I'm not just talking about the witch doctor. In the Edinburgh Journal, for example, they noted Africans were the first in cesarean operations. They have a picture of it in my recent Journal of African Civilization, that they had invented a vaccine for smallpox before the Europeans, that they were using tetracycline consciously before the Europeans, that they were the first people to have standardized medicinal doses in Egypt, a socialized medicine.
I thought tetracycline was a relatively modern drug.
No, 14 centuries ago, they have found Africans using the tetracycline. They found the yellow-green flash in their bones. And they found where they were using that tetracycline, there's the lowest incidence of infectious disease in an ancient population.
Do they know how it was administered?
No, they found it first in their grain bin, so that it may have started as an accident, but then the Africans became aware of it and started to use it in medicinal doses. And you wonder why are these things not mentioned? The reason why they're not mentioned is that most of the studies of Africans were done in small communities, survival communities. Studies at the core and centers of major African civilization, few of these have been done, and even when done, they haven't been done in terms of technology because it was assumed that they did not have a technology.
So if you're going to give out this information, at least be honest. But then again, now I understand what the elders who are now ancestors, like Ivan Van Sertima, Dr. Ben Yochanan, Sheikh Anta Diop, what they were saying, and having to go through their establishments of people who conquered them, but also taught them. So the more educated you get in that system, it's like you forget who you are. And it's cool if you really don't care about who you are or who you were or the history that surrounds those things. That's fine. That means that technically their job is done. They won. So as much education as you get and as much things that you may know that others may not, there are a whole heap of shit that you don't know that others do. And we don't need books for them. Common sense will do just fine.
And we'll be able to argue with you down to the wire to prove that we were here for a long, 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 long time, brothers and sisters. Longer than white folks can even write down in their archaeological books. All right, so you need to study that information. Now, with that being said, 16.4 billion years of history, when you're using the scale of time to go back into years, the geological eras and the periods, the Cenozoic, the Mesozoic, the Paleozoic. The Paleozoic is the oldest and only goes back to 590 million years. So now the Mayans have a calendar that stretched beyond the modern ability to even calculate the things that they try to calculate in the fossil records and the early microbes and the evolution of life. This goes to show that the whole theory of evolution is a joke. We are thinking that we are evolving and we are actually devolving. How can the people that eat McDonald's every day evolve? It's a joke. All right, so we need to kind of get ourselves in perspective to see who we are because we're too arrogant. We think that we are advanced. We're not advanced. And there's civilizations that have been and still are more advanced than us. In the sense of us, meaning us who are thinking we're in a modern epic and being advanced. Now, the thing about the book, The Message of the Engraved Stones of Ica, if you type it into your search engine, you will get a website of one brother that put a lot of images up. You won't get the book, of course, but you'll get some images. And inside of these images, what you will find out is that these Amaru people, corresponding with the Mayan calendar, they were already here, depicted themselves interfacing with these Jurassic prototypical animals. Jurassic meaning dinosaurs. I have in the book that I'm looking at right now, 27 glyphs etched into a stone that is called andesite, used to depict these particular things. All right. The other part of this discussion that is important is not only do they depict Jurassic animals, and Jurassic animals would have lived, according to modern data, 213 million years ago. They're the only ones on the planet that depict these particular things in carvings and etched glyph work that is not Paleolithic in the sense of made by people who are not necessarily at the level of intelligence that we are. No, these are glyphs that are very clear, that you can see, and they are beautiful pieces of artwork that, according to modern standards, would be 213 million years old. Find me somebody on the earth that has that. You won't find it. Not only that, you say, well, maybe they're false. Maybe the stones and the etchings are false that are in this particular book that I'm mentioning the message of the engraved stones of Ica. Well, that was purported. So the author, who actually was a part of the discovery of the stones, and there are almost 20,000 of these stones that were found in Ica, Peru, sent him to be tested. All right? And when he sent him to be tested, the author, of course, here is Dr. Javier Cabrera Darquilla. He took 33 of the stones, and he took them. He had a friend that was called Luis Hachal of the Mauricio Hachal Mining Company based in Lima, Peru. So he sent them to the laboratory to get them to be tested, and they were tested by a geologist by the name of Eric Wolf. And he basically made a statement that's a part of this book. I want to read it. He basically says, this is unquestionably natural stone shaped by fluvial transport. Metrologically, I would classify them as andesites. Andesites are rocks whose components have been subjected mechanically to great pressure, which causes chemical changes to take place. In this case, the effects of the intense esterification are obvious. This process has increased the compactness in specific weight. And he confirms that he would send them to the University of Bonn in West Germany. And he basically states that the rocks are from the Mesozoic era, which would align with the third era, or the second era of the Mesozoic era, the Jurassic era, 213 million years ago. All right, so now we have the rocks being tested. Now, andesite is a stone that develops from volcanic rock. And on the scale, on the mole scale, which is a scale that's used to test the hardness of rocks, the rocks come up harder than granite, which means that in order to make the carvings into the stones and the etchings, which are actually pieces of art, right, artwork that are very detailed and actually very beautiful in the way that they look. They're not, caveman type of carving. They're very artistic. The archaeological report says that the people would have to have carbon steel, diamond cutting materials, or possibly even lasers. Now, who do you know 213 million years ago, when there was supposed to be no human beings, could be using that type of technology? So right here in the Americas, you had that going on, according to even the modern data. Not only that, they made depictions of how they physically look. I'm holding a book right now, and on the front page, you have one of the stones that depicts one of the chiefs with full garb on, with a telescope looking up into the stars, and the stars are etched onto the top of this particular stele. Who had telescopes this far, or this far back in history? There's no depictions of anybody with telescopes. So our question remains: what type of advanced civilizations existed millions and millions and millions of years ago right here, when we don't find this type of information anywhere else in the world? Not only did they leave this particular type of information, but they left maps that show the tectonic plates before certain levels of cataclysm occurred on the planet. Now, many of us learn about civilizations that we call Atlantis and Lemuria and other things, and there have been proposed ways of how they look. These particular people left these particular maps, and they show the continents when they were connected, when the plates were slid together. All right? So we have, according to the research that we've done, we know that there were certain levels of cataclysms that caused the tectonic plates to slide. That information is verified, but this is prior to those cataclysms that mostly would have happened 12,900 years ago, around 10,000 BC. They gave us maps that old. No one else has maps prior to that particular period. So, again, we're dealing with evidence, very, very clear evidence of very ancient material. All right? So now we have the oldest calendar. Then we have the oldest glyph writing. The oldest glyph writing today is found in Ica, Peru, on these particular stones, which make depictions of the constellations. It identifies them. It makes depictions of what the people look like. It gave depictions of the animals living during that particular time. Over 17 different types so-called prehistoric animals, which were cross-checked with the fossil record to verify that these depictions on the stones match those particular animals. So we have to ask ourselves the question, brothers and sisters. If all this information is coming up, and we had so-called esoteric teachers like Prophet Noble Drew Ali and others who came and taught us parts of this information, is it erroneous or is it false? Since we know for a fact that this particular information exists and has been tested, and you can't even get this book in the United States, the signature line spells conspiracy. And the conspiracy states and denotes that there's somebody who does not want you to understand global history as it was recounted by these particular aboriginals. And it's not by coincidence that our ancestors were able to further calculate using their calendric system and having the knowledge of earth sciences and having other levels of knowledge that are far more advanced than we could ever imagine. It's not by coincidence they were able to predict the rise and fall of the very civilization that we are a part of into a calendar that we call the Mayan calendar, which is really a Moorish calendar, or a calendar of the Amaru, or the Ashia, the Asiatics. These particular things cannot be argued. We are seeing the earth go through these particular things. All right? So when we are talking about verifying this information, we have it.
We on the side.